Hey, Danielle. Can you hear me?
Hey, yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yay. How's everyone doing tonight? How are you, Amy?
I'm okay. I'm sitting out here hoping that my bird cooperates tonight.
Aw.
But we all know that that's always a risk-taking factor, and I've got a house full of kids tonight, so we'll see.
Oh boy. Hey, yes, I can. Can you hear me? We got feedback for a
Ooh,
minute. Sorry, guys.
deja vu.
That's what happens when I don't turn my volume down. So, I guess
Yeah.
we could just get right to it. We have a special guest tonight. She is with the Palmer Herald. I think many people will remember it as the newspaper being named the Palmer Herald. It is now named the Colorado Herald. Is that correct?
Yes, it was formerly known as the Palmer Lake Herald on Facebook, and it has
Yeah.
recently changed their name. And we will be talking to Darcy. So we're very excited. She has closely covered the disappearance and the unfortunate murder of Gannon Stauch since the beginning. She is local to the area, and at times she's posted and published her own personal opinions about this case. And we thought it'd be interesting to chat with Darcy tonight so she could share like some of her unique perspectives.
Yeah, definitely. We followed actually the Palmer Herald from the beginning, and Darcy was one who actually caught our attention
Yes.
because she was very forthcoming in her reporting, very forthcoming, and I enjoy following. I still follow that page actually, and I think that's where I actually went to for most of the breaking Gannon news,
Right.
more
Like
towards the end of his case. Yeah.
where they were searching and things like that. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean we'll get into it when we bring Darcy on board, but there was a time where she took a risk, and anytime you're doing something on Facebook or YouTube or whatever, just outright stating your opinion and calling someone out is always a risk. I fully support those risks. I think Danielle does too, because she's done it herself, but Darcy really put herself out on the line and called Tisha out publicly
She
on her
did.
platform.
She did. Um, I think this case was a case that a lot of us have just felt a different connection to. And I took a different stance on this very early on in the case because I couldn't ignore my feelings and
Mm-hmm.
what was in front of my eyes. And, it's not something I typically do, but I did it. And I always said I would stand behind what I said, and I do.
Right.
So,
Right. Well,
with that,
I think as a channel and personally, we both got some clap back on that. But that's what discussing cases is like. Waiting for a trial to be over and then discussing it is not what we do. So,
right, right. So, with that said, we'll go ahead and bring Darcy on. I'm excited to talk to her.
me too. Me too.
Hey, Darcy.
Hi guys, how are you?
Good. Thank you for coming and thank you for joining us tonight. We're really excited to talk to you.
Thank you. Me too. I apologize if you hear little kids in the background. I'm trying my best, but
Oh,
It's
you're
okay. It's
fine.
real life.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So I guess we wanted just to give you a platform to talk about how it is Colorado Herald now, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So how that started for you, what motivated you to do that, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty.
1 second. Darcy, I don't know if do you have YouTube playing in the background?
No,
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
have YouTube open.
Yeah, we were getting an echo. I heard it too. I don't hear it now, so I think we're good. Sorry to
Okay.
interrupt.
Oh, it's okay. Well, I actually started that page about 2 years ago, just simply because I was on the Palmer Lake Parks Committee and the school board and owned a business in town. And it just kind of helped me get some things out to the town and to other towns in the area that I felt were important. I've kind of always just used it as a way to communicate with people around me. And then when this happened, it just was a whole new level of communication, I guess.
Sure. So, I mean, you pretty much started reporting on this from day one. So,
Yeah.
So
There,
let me.
I mean, go ahead.
No. You go ahead. You go ahead and say what you're going to say.
No, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay. I like organic, so it's good. I was just
Okay.
going to ask that. I was just going to say, you really started covering this from day one, the night he disappeared, until he was reported. It was transitioned from missing to, or from runaway to missing. Can you tell me in the area what that was like living in the area? Like, what did you see? Did you see search groups? Did you see, was there
Oh,
a little
yeah.
underlying chat even back then?
Yeah. So from I covered it from the beginning, but then the second that there was a break where they were looking in Palmer Lake, and Douglas County for him, that actually was they were not even a half a mile from where I was living at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I just got in my car and went down there because I wanted to see what was going on. And so every day I would just drive past that search crew that was in Douglas County for, just to see what was going on and to see what people were saying. And, there were search crews every day, but there was also a lot of rumors. Because I'm local, I was getting a lot of messages from people saying hey, I heard this, or hey, I saw a canine over on this corner, or so-and-so told me that there's a warrant for this reason. So I was just I didn't think that mainstream media was handling it quickly enough. I didn't feel like the pressure was on Leticia enough. So I just basically started piecing it all together and posting it as quickly as I could so that she would feel some of the pressure and know what was going on.
Interesting. So could you see in real time, during that time she would be on social media, either on her own account or on her daughter's account? Sometimes we suspect on her mother's account. Did you see her in real time responding to what you were posting? Did you feel like an interaction?
She did message the Herald page at one point, and ask for me to take some of those posts down. And I was like, I'm not doing it. And here's my phone number if you want to have a conversation. So we did engage at one point briefly, but then I noticed there were those couple posts where there were texts, that she had put out, the things she was lying about, where I was able to see on her page that as I was calling her out, she was just offering more and more explanation, which was just getting worse and worse. So she was kind of doing exactly what I was hoping she would do.
I got you. That's interesting. So, but she never called you. She never actually reached out and talked to you?
No, she never called. The only messages that I received from her were asking if those posts could come down. They hadn't been verified. She was going to take a lie detector test. I gave her my phone number and I even tried to call her, but she never picked up the phone and made a phone call. So she tried to dispute. At one point, a friend of mine in Palmer Lake told me, hey, the property that they're searching on, they got a warrant because her phone pinged in the area. That's what I had heard. And so I posted that just to see how she would react to it. And then immediately that's when she started offering up explanations of why she was in the area. And it was so convoluted. I mean, I was just trying to post it as quickly as I could.
That's really interesting because the whole time Danielle and I kept using the same term that the police use. This was a game of cat and mouse with her.
Yeah.
It's almost like she enjoyed it. You know what? I'm going to stop for 1 second. I'm getting in the chat that there's some feedback. So when you're not talking, do you see the little audio button down in the bottom left? Are you on an iPhone?
Yep, got it.
Can you mute yourself? Yeah, there you go. And that'll help. Sorry about that. So she's playing not only a cat and mouse game with the sheriff's office, she's actually playing it with you. So there was a point in this case, and I don't know if our audience is familiar with this post or have seen your post, but tonight I will pique your interest. There was a point where Darcy took it upon herself to make a very lengthy statement calling Tisha out on her lies, saying, stop the lying and blah, 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 blah. So Darcy, I want to talk about how you came to that moment and how that happened and what the content of that post was.
So the content of that post was that was the messages. Are you talking about the one with all the messages that were in red? Because
I'm talking about the one where you said, you know, we're tired of the lies, we're tired of this, we're tired of your social media posts. Just tell the truth.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Got it. So I believe, didn't I get some of that info from your group? Actually, I think I got some of those texts from your group. I got some of those texts from stuff people sent me to the Herald page, and like I said, I was just done with it. I'm like, I want a resolution to this. It's sickening. So what's the worst that could happen? It's like either I mean, I don't think I'm going to get in trouble. We know she did it, so what's she going to do? Sue me? And so I just went out on a limb to try to see if I could shake her down. After assembling all that information about her texts and where she was that day and her lies, I just figured I knew she would see it because I could tell at that point. I was looking at the Herald, like the insights, and they were, you know, those posts were reaching like 20,000 people, which for the Palmer Lake Herald is unheard of. So I knew that she was seeing it. And then I was just trying to make her afraid. Like I just wanted her to confess or keep talking or whatever the case may be.
I remember the morning that I first saw that post and our admin group talking about, I think the general consensus was like, wow, somebody really put it out on the line.
Yeah, there were a couple followers in Palmer Lake that were like, this is such irresponsible journalism. It's so irresponsible. This page should be taken down. I did get a lot of flack. But like I said, I mean, you know as well as I know that she was already way guilty at the time. So what's the worst that could happen? And you didn't really see any news organizations putting the right information out there or really anyone even trying to sweat her out. So I just figured what's the worst that could happen?
I think that's the beauty of independent journalism is that you're not beholden to anyone. I know you practice with ethics and you wouldn't do anything to disrupt the process, but you don't have to keep your opinions to yourself. You don't have to play nice for political reasons.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, worst that could happen, I get sued. I mean, by who? Leticia. So at that point, I'm just like, who's going to do something about it? So, and I don't know in hindsight if that helped or if that accomplished anything, but I feel like I did all that I could do and I put all the information out there that I could find, and that's the best you can do.
So other than the few people you mentioned in Palmer Lake that said that it was irresponsible reporting, as far as like comments that were coming into you privately or publicly, what was the general consensus? Did you get support on that or?
Yes, I noticed that her that Landon's aunt messaged and kept commenting, and she does to this day. She still comments on the Colorado Herald posts, and Landon has commented a couple of times. And other than those few people in Palmer Lake, I do have to say there were a lot of messages that came in over those 2 weeks, and they were like, thank you so much for doing that. Thank you for putting this info out there because the news isn't doing it. And I guess I would like to think that the majority of people were grateful, or at least didn't see it as a bad thing.
I mean, I didn't see it as a bad thing at all because because it was everything that I think everybody wanted to say and we weren't hearing. And even with this channel, we were, we deal in facts. We do. But we also speculate, but we're very clear. I mean, almost too clear sometimes. It's almost redundant. Like, okay, we don't have proof, but based on this is where my thoughts are going. And Danielle stands by her opinions. I stand by mine. And when I read that piece, I thought, well, thank God somebody else is standing up and saying something, because we were getting a lot of flack at that time for our opinions. But the evidence was there. Everything, it wasn't pointing to anything else but Leticia. So I want to ask you, we have a specific turning point in mind where, our little pointers started going towards her. What was yours? Was there a moment where you thought this just isn't right?
No, I think not to sound like a know-it-all, but I think that the second he was missing, there were just red flags everywhere. I pretty much had tunnel vision. I was like, she did it. There's no other explanation. And I never thought otherwise. So I don't know. I just remembered like the first couple days he was missing, as those first details came out, with her saying that he didn't go to school, and then he did go to school, and then there was the nurse line and just all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like, I mean, I think we all kind of knew from the beginning that she did it. So I was pretty comfortable on that side of the fence.
Right. Well, she had an answer for everything. I think you said that before. It was just like a whack-a-mole game with her. Every time there was a question, there was an explanation lined up for it. There were a couple of times where she got sloppy, like the nurse hotline and the doctor's appointment and things like that, where it became
Aguardo.
Yeah. Well, we didn't find that out until the affidavit.
Yeah. That's her style, though.
I know. That was just like, oh, I've got to sit down for this one. I can't. In fact, I remember I started to read it online, and I thought, oh, like I wanted to read it so bad, but I'm like, I have to print this out because I have to like start marking stuff up right now. Like I can't even deal with the nonsense. I can't even imagine what it was like for the detectives collecting that information and the FBI and all the other agencies involved. So I guess I'm kind of skipping all over the place here with you, but I guess I'm going to ask you what you think. Well, I guess what you think happened. Like, what is your scenario with this? And then 2, how do you think she left town?
I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I still believe that, as crazy as it sounds, I still believe that we will hear something more on the bath salts. I think that she poisoned him with bath salts, not the drug bath salts, but just the kind that you soak in when you have cramps. I think her repeated texts about the bath salts, and then the fact that she said that she called the nurse's line and they whipped up a remedy. One of the remedies for constipation is magnesium salts, bath salts. And so to me, I think she was preemptively covering her tracks, because there's more to the story with those bath salts. And I think that she made him gravely ill, and he had accidents, and then she obviously shot him and stabbed him and everything else she did. But as far as her getting to, I don't know how she didn't take that rental car. There weren't enough miles. She didn't take her car. I don't know. She had to have borrowed someone's car, whether it was, I don't know. I don't know on that aspect how she got down there. What do you think?
I don't. That's like an empty space of time with me.
Yeah.
There's too many variables. Um, this isn't me condemning the FBI and the police. I just don't understand how she got out of their sights. I mean, she really gave them the slip, and that blows my mind.
Yeah.
I can't even wrap my head. I honestly can't even wrap my head around it, because I feel like one of the things I mean, we built a timeline, but one of the other things we've been doing is trying to figure out when Leticia was doing things, when the police found out she was doing things, and when the public found out. You know, kind of like building this, going back in time and seeing everything happen in real time, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
it seems like the police were at times right behind her, and then other times they were, oh, it's so frustrating, 2.5 days behind, because they were raveling through her lies. And it's interesting when you mention the bath salts, because I have seen those texts over and over again. I've never really been able to piece them together myself, the way you just did. And it makes sense, because another thing we say over and over again here is that in every lie she tells, there's a piece of truth. And there's a reason
exactly.
why she likes to document things in texts and videos and pictures. Oh, I have this. Oh, I have this. You know, she's Leticia, attorney at law, exhibit A, you know. And so the bath salts make sense. They haven't stuck out in my head like something else that always bothers me, and it's kind of a annoying joke between Danielle and I, but I'm constantly bothered by the Burger King reference. I don't know why.
Yeah.
For some reason,
I am too. I don't know why she keeps talking about it.
For some reason, it was very important in that interview to mention that. And it was so flippant. And it was like, here's a little bit of blah, 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 blah. Oh, and then we went to Burger King. So yeah.
It's so weird.
But there's not a Burger King or a franchisee that we can find on the witness list. So obviously at this point, I mean, maybe it wasn't important enough to put in the arrest affidavit. That's possible. I mean, yeah, it wasn't important enough to be put in the arrest affidavit, and we may see it later in discovery if we can get that.
Yeah.
So, so let me ask you, this is a controversial question on this channel. Do you think that Gannon got out of the truck at 219 on 127?
No.
Okay, tell me why, and I'm going to mute my mic. And yeah, you can, there's nothing off limits here.
I think that I think the simplest explanation is usually the right one. And I think that if he would have gotten out, if there was evidence that he had gotten out, I feel like we would have seen it by now. And considering it's not in the arrest affidavit and not one person's been able to verify it, including the neighbor, I don't think law enforcement has any reason to hide that fact. So there's that. And then just the way she talks about it. I mean, the way she talks about it alone, I just don't know. I don't think he was there. I think if he were there, then someone would have been able to figure that out by now.
Well, the reason I asked is because in the affidavit, when they talk about the surveillance video, they say there's a figure that appears to be Leticia and appears to be Gannon, although they can't confirm that, but that they do believe that Gannon returned home on 219 or on January 27th at 2:19 p.m., returned to the residence. And so in reading that verbiage, we've kind of said, well,
Yeah.
they mean just returned as a body or
I know.
returned as an
Yeah.
alive person, because we have struggled with why, when you leave the house at 10:20 in the morning, and you drive around for hours and hours, why you would bring a child back to your own house to murder
I know.
him.
I don't. I know. I mean, I feel like he could have come back with her. Like that's obviously rational, but I don't think there's any chance that he was alive or well. I mean,
Right.
I think, remember hearing the neighbor saying that, like, the neighbor was in tears when he was describing that, and oh, I don't know. I don't think that was he maybe there. I don't know, but I don't think he got out of that truck looking healthy and walking into the house.
Right. Okay. So we're kind of on the same page with you there. I just, it blows my mind, because when I go through that theory, I think, well, then was that him leaving in the morning? Was that him leaving in the morning, or was that someone else? Who was that? If that wasn't him, who
I don't
was
know.
it? Because it would make sense to me that he was already um suffering from mortal injuries, or
Yeah.
he was already passed in the morning. Because why would you, I keep thinking about this, like, if you have I'll only speak from personal experience. Like, if I have a headlight out of my car or something, I'm on my way to go get it fixed, or I have some errands. The entire time I'm trying to drive so careful and whatever, so nobody pulls me over, so I don't get a ticket for it, because I'm on my way to get it fixed, right? I don't think you would be driving around all over town with a child that needed medical attention in the car.
I mean, I don't think I would be, and I don't think you would be, but like, just like the rest of this case, I don't know if she would be. I mean, why was she staring at the entrance multiple times when she was at Petco? Was he in the car then, like, deteriorating?
Right.
I It's so hard to say, and that's what's been so frustrating with this entire case, is the way that the facts have come out. We've all had to piece together this like haphazard timeline.
Right. Right.
And I just,
yeah,
I don't
that's the
know.
perfect way to put it. Every time I think that I have it in my mind how things could work, I think about something else. I'm going, no, that doesn't make sense. But then the golden rule is, or at least for me, is that you have to put on the Leticia suit and get in her brain and think, is
Yeah.
it something, what would Leticia do? Like, is this something she would do? And yeah, she takes a lot of crazy risks, and she clearly murdered someone. She's not thinking straight. So that makes it difficult when you're of sound mind.
Yeah. I mean, it's all crazy. Like, why did she get off at that Monument Palmer Lake exit? It makes no sense. And if you ever get if you are ever in the area and you get off on that exit and you look at where they found that evidence, it doesn't make logical sense. So in my mind, like, I still don't understand why she's done a lot of things, like why that exit and why so far off that exit. It's
Well,
not like she got off that exit and it was like 2 minutes. I mean, it was pretty far off the exit.
so we're not, neither Danielle or I are anywhere near that area. So maybe you can explain that to us, because we've only seen it on maps online, and that's difficult to make those relationships, to try to figure it out. We heard it explained once that, I guess, part of her story was that she got lost or she got turned around. And someone on our team told us that there's no way to get lost or turned around there, because there's literally signs, like saying, like a sign on the left and a sign on the right, and it has like 15 listings of what happens if you go this way and what happens if you go that way, and anybody that lives in the area would know that. So
Yeah, it's just not an exit you would get off on, and it's the road that the evidence was found is not, it's like 15 minutes from the exit. So it just, it's so weird. It's her pattern of thought as to how she mapped out that day and where she went and what she did, still to me just doesn't make sense.
So, not to belabor it, but is that a road that is traveled frequently, or would she have to know somebody out there to choose that spot? Is it isolated? Could she do the things she needed to do out there in privacy?
I don't see how or why she was on that road. It's going towards Larkspur, and Larkspur is west of Palmer Lake. And when you go down that route, it's all residential. And like, let's say you run out of gas in between Palmer Lake and Douglas County, there's nowhere to stop. There's nowhere to stop for a good 25 miles. So I don't know why she got off there, or like how she did that without anybody seeing her. I mean, where they were searching, like I said, it was about a half mile from my house, and it was right out on the main road. And yeah, cars travel down Highway 80, I think it's called 83. They go all day long. So there's just no logic to me in most of the things that she did that day, and I don't know if it comes from her mental state that day or what.
Well, I wonder if she got out there too and she thought she was going to have more privacy than she actually did. I don't know.
That's true.
And then she realized, like, picked the wrong place, running out of time. Not to make light of it, but
I don't know. I mean, we could find out she knows somebody out there. I did search all those properties out there and see who owned every single one of them along the road that they were searching, because there's not that many houses.
Our team did
and
too.
Yeah, they didn't find anything, right?
Right. Well, I mean, we found some interesting things, and we went out on some tangents and tried to make some connections. I mean, we were listening to everything anybody was saying, including tarot card readers, and like, there was one that said that you would find a connection to NASA and, and things like that. And so, we found a like observatory thing out there. And then we started looking at retention ponds and sewage treatment plants and things like that. I mean, I'll just, if you were doing the same thing.
Yeah, I was
looking at
doing the exact same
topographical
thing.
maps. Yes. So, all right. Well,
it's weird.
It is. Gosh, I hope at some point we really know the entire story, because I'm at a loss. Like, there's some parts of this that are so fluid, and then it's just like choppy, random, and maybe that is a reflection of her mental state. Maybe that's the simplest answer. So, well, let me switch gears then, and I will ask you I will say this first. For a long time, we wouldn't speak about Harley Hunt on this channel because she was a minor, but now she is of legal age. What do you think the extent of Harley's knowledge is? And do you think she had any involvement? Just your instincts.
My instinct is she didn't have any involvement other than helping clean up. I think she knows what happened, but I don't think she caused it to happen.
So it's more of the covering and the aftermath and the concealment rather than the actual commission of the crime.
Yeah. And I think that seems to be kind of like the general feeling, even like when living in Palmer Lake, like most people were of the feeling that Harley probably knew what happened. She helped conceal the crime, because that's her mom, and you can tell that that's how that you can tell that those two are like really close. But that I don't think she's ever gonna say, I don't think she's ever gonna say what she knows.
That's
though.
interesting. Do you think, I mean, I agree that they're close, but do you, I have said, and Danielle we have both voiced our opinions that we believe that there are rumors of abuse and that Harley was more controlled. And if she went along with things, even though she knew they were morally wrong and legally wrong, in a way, she didn't have a choice because that was her mother and that was the dynamic. You do what Leticia tells you to do, or your life is hell.
I could see that too. So you don't sense that they had any type of, like, I feel like even watching them on camera, I felt, you're right, like Harley was intimidated by her, and she's probably lived that way her whole life. But I do think that they were close also, just from having gone through both of their Facebooks and both of their Instagrams. I think that their relationship was not typical of a mother-daughter relationship at all.
Right. Okay. I can see that. I think, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I think I looked at it, I'm not just discounting that they were close, but I almost feel like it was, I don't know if the word is codependent, but
That's a good word.
yeah, that Leticia needed to keep control over Harley, and Harley just craved the approval of her mother. And it was this weird dynamic, and that would create moments of closeness and intimacy between a mother and daughter, and it would create a friendship. But I can also see, and we talked about this the other night, Harley's timid voice and the way she whispers, even in her room, like when she's making videos with the door closed. She's a very quiet person. And even in her car when she's doing videos, she's a quiet person. And then Letitia's just out, like out and loud. And I wonder if that quietness wasn't a form of submission or just walking on eggshells, trying to keep the peace type of a dynamic. That's just me. So.
No, you're probably right. I mean, I don't really care to say it because she's dead, so who cares? But I had an aunt who was a narcissist and did weird stuff. Like, she would, if a dog was acting up, she would like poison the dog. Like, she did weird stuff her whole life. And her kids were terrified of her, and they would tell you that to this day. They're like, I love my mom, I would have done anything for my mom. Like, we spent every day together. She was always taking us to Walmart, always taking us to Burger King, or coincidentally, but that there was this level of control that they were just terrified of. Like, she would take your life if it came down to it. And I guess, I mean, you're right, Leticia is probably similar. I mean, she is a narcissist, so I'm sure Harley's probably scared of her to a certain extent. But I think in those like mother-daughter relationships, where even if the mom's a psycho narcissist, you still love your mom unconditionally. Like, that's just how kids grow up.
Even when children are removed from abusive situations, my mom used to do some guardian ad litem work way back in the 80s, and she would tell me that they would remove these children from terrible situations, physical abuse, emotional abuse, I mean, you name it. And when it came down to their parents being put in, jail or prison or whatever it was, and trying to find the child another place to live or whatever, the children would say, but I love my mommy, I just want to be with my mommy. And it's just so heartbreaking. And I think that's where my mind goes with Harley, because little kids just want to please their parents. It's not all of them, but I think especially when they're younger, they're always trying to figure out what they did wrong and why they got in trouble, rather than the act of the parent was irrational and wrong. And I don't know.
Like Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, very much so. And I have to wonder, you have this added little factor of Leticia being on sugardaddy.com, and she was active during their marriage, and what was she really doing on there? And, what did Harley maybe know about that? I think that would be very hard to conceal. And I'm not trying to crucify Harley. I'm just saying I feel that she was in a very uncomfortable position. Like, her mother had remarried somebody that was a good person, and they appeared to have a nice home and a nice lifestyle, and mom is just self-sabotaging it all over the place.
Yeah, I agree.
And one of the things that occurred to me the other night that I hadn't thought of before is that in the course of this, Harley was moved twice. I mean, for a short time they were in Alaska, and then they moved back to the Carolinas, and then she's 16 and she doesn't know anybody, or 17, doesn't know anybody, and they move out to Colorado Springs. I mean, that's hard.
Yeah, I never thought about that, actually.
And she seemed to adjust quite well.
Yeah. Do you know what she's doing now?
No. Mm-mm.
I don't either.
No. I mean, she's supposed to be joining the Air Force soon, but I assume that's not happening because there are court proceedings and she's on a witness list. But
true.
I don't know. I mean, we've heard she's with family, but we don't have concrete evidence of that.
Yeah.
So hopefully she's, I mean, at this point, until until we see charges or court, they go to court or whatever, I guess, she needs to be looked at as a victim as well. So
that's true.
Hopefully, she's getting some assistance with that.
Maybe after enough counseling and like services that she could be offered as a victim, maybe someday she'll talk. But I don't know.
Right.
We'll see how long she stays scared.
Well, I mean, it's got to be difficult for her too, because she has already lost her father. Now she's lost her stepfather, and her mother is ultimately going to go to prison. So,
well, it seems like, I mean, the family, Leticia, actually, as terrible of a person as she is, she seemed to have a pretty extensive network of family down south. That's why, for me, it's so hard to figure out how she got down there in the timeline, because we really don't know who has helped her, who's met her halfway, and so on and so forth. So it seems crazy that, I guess I would assume that same family would reach out and offer help to Harley if they're such great family.
I don't know if great family is the word for it, but she has a lot of it.
Great to Leticia.
Great to Leticia. Yes. Well, apparently the aunt that rented her the car is local. So I would assume that if Harley's still in Colorado Springs, we've heard that that's who she's with, but I really don't know. And I would think that if Harley had any choice in it, she'd want to be close to where her mother is.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I mean, she's going to be in there for the rest of her life. Is Harley planning to visit her every single week and put money on her books? Like, what's the end goal? She's not getting out.
Well, if she escaped handcuffs, I'm sure she's thinking about it.
That's true. That was great, by the way.
You can't make that up. I remember when I heard that story. I don't mean to laugh. I think I told you before when we were setting up this interview, I said sometimes we could go on this channel and it's a stress reliever when things get too much. It's just a natural instinct that I have. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but
I know.
Oh my gosh, when I heard that story, I just thought, there's no way this could be true.
So did I. I thought the drama had subsided. Like, once they arrested her I was like, okay, cool. Like it's coming to an end. And then it was like 2 days later, I get a breaking news thing on my phone and it says she's attacked someone. And I was like, what?
Slipped out of her handcuffs and attacked someone.
Yeah. And I mean, that just proves to me right there, if anyone had any doubt as to how evil she is, and if there was a 1% chance in your mind that she didn't do any of these things and that it was a huge accident, that could tell you right there that she did. Because anyone who's going to slip out of their handcuffs and attack a correctional officer, first of all, they know they have nothing to lose. She knows she's in there. She knows what she did. But second of all, she's crazy. So it's like she really just proved who she was so much more in that moment.
Oh, I absolutely agree. So in a second, I'm going to go to the chat. And so everybody in the chat, I'm reading your comments as we go. And if you have any questions for Darcy, go ahead and think about them and start posting them, and I'll start reading your comments. But right before we do that, I think the $1 million question for you right now anyway is, when you saw the arrest affidavit, what was the thing that like shocked you the most when you read through it?
Honestly, none of it was that I think the most shocking thing, and it wasn't that shocking to me because she's crazy, was the Aguardo stuff. There were two separate stories like that in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, even to the bitter end, she's just lying. It's that to me is sociopathic, her stories.
Well, and it's interesting. We talked about this the other night too, that there's an underlying, I hate saying these words out loud, so trigger warning, but all of those stories in that little area all have to do with some sort of a sexual assault.
Exactly.
And so, is there any truth? Is there truth to Eduardo? Or I'm not saying that, but was there somebody from Sugar Daddy in the house? Was she doing something? It's like, why is that a thing? And I think for me, one of the things that we joke about a lot was her police interview. The way she showed up 2 hours late with a wet car, with the note
Yeah,
card,
I forgot about that.
refusing a SANE exam after she tells all these things, escaping in the hospital, the shoving of the tissues down her pants. I mean, it's
what
just
was that about? What were the tissues about?
We think that she was preserving her DNA, and she had refused to drink water or have food there. And when they were holding her to get the warrant for her DNA, she started shoving the tissues down her pants and having a panic attack, and that's when they called 911. But I mean, before that, I had not heard anything about her being in an emergency room or in the hospital or any of that. Me neither. So I was just like, what? Like she went in with no cards and she did what? So,
well, that's the thing. I mean, and that adds more to what we've been saying for the last hour. Her behavior is so erratic. I do think that, and I'm not giving her an excuse, but unfortunately, I do think that we're going to find out that she's got some mental conditions that are more serious than we thought. And that's going to probably come into play with the defense.
Right. Well,
like, it's not going to help her. She's going to be in there for life regardless.
Right. Well, I think she's been lying her whole life.
Yeah.
And I don't even know when that started, because some of what I know is facts from the team, and some of what I know is just hearsay. I'll admit it. I've heard people that went to school with her on other podcasts talking about the driver's ed incident, where she stole the driver's ed car. I heard the people that went to high school with her talk about the bomb threat and the kind of girl she was. I heard a very interesting story where they said that Leticia, now again, this is hearsay, everybody. So, I can't prove it or in any way. I did hear somebody saying that they were a classmate of hers and they were all in choir together, and they would have these little solo parts and these choir montages. And when they were practiced, Tisha would mess up everybody by stealing someone's solo and then smiling about it. Like,
See, that's weird. And she lacks impulse control. Her personality is like borderline personality. She lacks impulse control. She has no control of her faculties and her whereabouts from one moment to the next. And that's all in that, like, why was she at that exit? Why does she mention Burger King? Why the bath salts? Why this incessant texting? Why steal a driver's ed car? Like, she has very little self-control.
oh, you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. You cut out. Did you say very little self-control?
Yeah, she just has very little self-control from one moment to the next. She feels like a ball in one of those like ping pong, like those games where like you're just
a pinball machine.
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I don't know.
And I hear a lot where people talk about how she isn't that smart. And I beg to differ, because although she lacks common sense in a lot of ways, she's smart enough where when she's being a ping pong ball, when she's in the pinball machine and she's bouncing around off the flippers and stuff and the flashing lights are going off, she's quick with her stories. She's quick.
Yeah, she's really quick, and she's able to manufacture stories from one moment to the next that kind of like keep you holding on. And I don't know, I wonder if that's like was some of what happened with the police. Like if there was so much coming at them and she was moving faster than they were.
That's
I don't
a
know.
possibility, I think. But I think they were on to her from day one. They were just, I should say we. I don't want to take credit for opinions of this channel and the team and Danielle, but as a channel, I think our opinion has been that they were on her from day one and they gave her the rope to hang herself with. So
yeah, I'm sure. I mean, like when you said earlier, how was she able to get from point A to point B? I mean, she was able, I think, because they let her. They didn't know where he was, and so they let her.
Right.
But then it's like, I don't know.
But somewhere she lost them,
Yeah.
because All right, so I'm going to start looking at the chat and reading what everybody's saying. And let's see. Leanne says she has a Casey Anthony lie reflex. She's definitely somebody that she is like Casey Anthony in the hallway, up against the wall, can't find her office, and throws her. The only thing Leticia doesn't do is she never throws her hands up and say, okay, I lied. Leticia keeps going. Leticia eats a hole through the wall and keeps walking. That's the difference between those two.
Yeah.
Okay, on to Remus. The text pic of the Apple Watch regarding the candle. Was this from H to T or T to L? I honestly don't know. I haven't been able to figure that out. So, let's see. Carolina Girl says law enforcement really dropped the ball, not knowing how she got Gannon to Florida. And let's see. Do you guys have any questions? Okay, the Chookstead says, yes, T's on mom put it in her Facebook post wishing her sister a happy birthday, basically saying she is lucky to be alive because T locked her in a hot car and would hide keys more than once. Oh my gosh. Did you, Darcy,
Oh my God.
did you ever see that post?
I've never seen that.
It's true. Her mother on Juju, is that her sister's name? I think it was either Juju or Amy. I can't remember which one. So if you guys are in the chat and you can clarify. Yeah, her mother was like, happy birthday to you and blah, blah, blah. Something about your sister, Tisha, because you're so lucky to still have you here because she used to lock you in the car and hide the keys. It was
what?
Yeah.
I've never seen that.
Yeah, it was crazy. We have a screenshot of it somewhere. I need
that's
to,
awesome. I got to get my hands on that.
I need to dig it up. All right, let's see. Glam Dolly 20 says, Leticia invited cops in with G's body there. Her social media rants after the murder, the TV interview, she has huge confidence in her ability to manipulate perceptions, and 99% of the time she succeeded. I agree with you there. Do you have an opinion on that?
I agree too.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible, it's almost probable that Gannon's body was in that house the night, and she pulled the Tiguan in over the blood stain on the garage floor, and he was, at this point, most people believe he was in the back of the Tiguan.
Yep.
And
go ahead.
Yeah, and she was like, come on in, search the house. I mean,
it's
like she got a rush off of it.
Yeah, and there have been a couple cases over the years, I just read a lot of news where a kid's been reported missing, and then there's one in Chicago where like 3 days later they found the body under the couch in the living room. And I'm not trying to point the finger at law enforcement. I've never been that person, but the amount of evidence that was in that house, including his body, it's unnerving that all of that was there for days before it was really combed through.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we all saw the police footage of them removing things from the house, the bags, what looked to be rolled up carpet, etc. But when you saw it all in the affidavits laid out for you, it was chilling. I mean, really, just the amount of blood that was in that house.
I know. If he was, if he was in the Tiguan and there was blood on the back of it and there was blood in the garage, and I don't know. I mean, not that it would have made a difference. Let's be honest, it wouldn't have made a difference, but it's troubling nonetheless. Especially for future cases. It just doesn't sit right.
I agree. So Carolina Girl says, did she really use a gun, blunt object, knife, etc., or are they covering their bases with the charges? Do we know for certain he was shot? So when they discovered the body and when there was an autopsy, they had an individual charge for each one of those. So yes, they do have something that would indicate that all of those methods were used. And she has individually charged. Those were the additional charges after the body was recovered. Aunt Remus wants to know, how did Al not see anything wrong on the 28th? I think Al did see something wrong on the 28th. I think Al knew from the beginning. That's just do you have an opinion on that, Darcy?
I think he did too.
Yeah. They want to know how there was no blood found in the truck. I've wondered that too. Maui Girl asked that question. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice just a little bit. Hillary Jane, you caught a lie.
That's what's concerning. There's no blood found in the truck, but the affidavit states that Gannon came back to the house, and it actually gives a specific time that he was killed at the house.
Right.
It gives like a 3-hour window.
Right.
That they believe that Leticia killed him in. And during that window, Harley would have been coming home and Lena would have been coming home.
Right.
So there has to be evidence somewhere that points to that, because they specifically
and they ruled
etched out that time frame.
Right. And they ruled out, or they excluded Harley in the affidavit. When we read this the other night, the only people that would have had access to Gannon at this point were Lena and Leticia. So you're right, there's a missing piece there.
Right. And then it comes back to, you were talking about law enforcement, and we 100% support law enforcement here all the time, but there are legitimate questions, such as, why was Leticia allowed to move stuff out of that house?
Right, because
Yeah,
everything
that
was
was
supposed to be cataloged. Yeah.
Right. Right. And from my understanding, she came there when nobody was there, but how?
I agree with you. And I will say, like you just said, I'm all for law enforcement, but they are lucky in this case that there is so much evidence and that they found a body. Because if this were, say this were the Casey Anthony case, it would be a disaster. It would be an absolute disaster. They're lucky that they have 2,000 pieces of evidence, because allowing her to take stuff out of the house and so on and so forth, I'm sure a lot of that evidence will be stricken later. But luckily, they've got mountains of it.
Right. Lonesome Dove had a good point and said you may want to question why would Al fly to Oklahoma when it was only 4 hours away?
Because the military pays for that.
Okay.
That, I mean, I can pretty much tell you that 100% just from my
Right.
experiences.
Right.
How you get there most of the time is dictated.
Yeah. I know he took a commercial flight, but that doesn't matter. So,
Right.
I guess I'm more concerned with why Al stayed at the airport on Saturday night. I don't know why that's a red flag to me. I don't know what it's significant of. I see that as maybe like, and comparing that with Leticia's search history on the 25th is concerning. Like, were they arguing? Were they not getting along? So he decided, oh, I'm just going to stay at the airport. You know, there's a lot of questions there.
Did he want private time to speak with his mother?
Right,
You know.
right. Because we know he took his mother to the airport. You know, and if you look at her search history, that's alarm bells start going off. Like, whoa, you know, her husband was just leaving to go out of town and may have even still been home when she was searching this stuff.
Right.
On the 25th, I believe there were searches for find me a man who wants to pay me to take care of his kids. Will the mother of my stepchildren send me a Valentine's card, or just, I mean,
That's
horrible.
So weird.
Yeah, there were horrible things searched on her account on the 25th, and it's alarming.
Do we know what the weather was on the 25th? Or was there a chance that the weather was bad?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't think we've ever. Yeah, I don't think we've ever looked at that. I think we maybe assumed that it was okay because they went hiking on Sunday, but that is a great point.
Right, and it was, and he flew out of Denver, right? Not.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay. So what was the weather like on the 25th in Denver? That is something we haven't talked about before.
Or we could also look at, like the flight. Maybe it got in really late, and I don't know. Maybe he had a delayed flight. I'm not saying he did, but he could have. Like if he got in at 2 or 3 in the morning on accident. I don't know. There's just, I know DIA is a little dicey sometimes, but you're probably right. They probably were arguing or something else happened, but not to throw shade on Al, but if they were arguing and it wasn't the case of like weather or just a late flight, if you're arguing, I just think it would still be a priority to get home to your biological son and not have him stay there with her. So it doesn't add up to me.
Well, that's a whole other conversation, like whether or not he acknowledged the extent of, you know, what, I don't know how to put this, but you know, there are rumors that Leticia was abusing the children and that, you know, Al may have had knowledge of it and why he would leave them in that situation. Yeah.
Coat of many colors. How did she get Gannon to Florida? I think we're all assuming that she drove him there. And actually the route that she would have taken to Florida out of Colorado would have been about 500 to 600 miles out of route, going the way that she did, where she went through Texas and all the Gulf Coast states over to Florida and up the East Coast to South Carolina. Had she went the standard route, which would have taken her basically across the Midwest and a couple of the southern states, it was like 500 to 600 miles shorter for her to go the standard way. And she chose to go down through Texas and all the Gulf Coast states. So that's something to look at for sure and figure out why she went that way. I have it stuck in my head that something took her to that location. I don't know what it is, but it's not random. Because she drove through how many states? Colorado.
Well, based on and you got to remind people that we're basing this on the FBI agents and their locations.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of other opportunities.
Right. She drove through Colorado, Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, what was it? Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina. So
maybe she was checking them all off on her bucket list. I mean, I don't know.
But it's abnormal. It's abnormal to carry
so abnormal
a murdered child across the country with you. I feel like her first instinct would have been to get rid of any evidence.
Yes.
But instead, she held on to him and took him from state to state to state. As far as we know, I mean, he got to Florida somehow. There's only one way he really could have gotten there.
You're right. And if you're going to take him all the way to Florida, here's my question, and not to be gruesome, but like if you've got a body and you've been toting it around with you from state to state to state, why would you not dump it in a swamp where no one's going to find it?
Yeah.
Why did she just haphazardly throw this suitcase? It was like 10 feet from the road.
Right. Ryan Sam said the way she went led her toward the panhandle. I think she could have looked online and saw where there was a lack of traffic cams. I mean, that's possible because there aren't a lot around there in that particular area, but that's pretty, I'm sure there's other opportunities too. And like you said, the swamps and everything else. I mean,
she was close.
Yeah. We had talked about, not to be grisly, but we had talked about swamps because we were talking about other cases.
Yeah.
And how if you were going to get rid of a body, that would be the way to do it. And again, I go back to the day that she was driving around on the 27th with him in the car. I mean, I'm not a murderer, so I don't know, but I wouldn't want to be driving around for a very long time with that kind of evidence in my car. I'd want to get rid of it as soon as I felt like I had a safe distance and an opportunity not to get caught.
I feel like she did what was comfortable to her, just like hiding Gannon's body in the Palmer Lake area. And I could be completely wrong, but I feel like something took her to that area. We've seen the search area. We've seen that it's private properties, and something gave her confidence.
Yeah.
But what gives her confidence to put the body so close to the road? Both of those locations were right on the road. I just don't. She's not stupid. So why did she do that? Someone asked me when she first disappeared, when we were confident that Gannon was dead and that he wasn't coming back, where do you think that he went? And I was like, I don't think at this point, with him being gone for 3 weeks, I'm like, we're never going to find him. She's smart enough that he's in a swamp or at the bottom of Pueblo Reservoir, or she's, chopped him up into pieces and threw him in the ocean. So being that she's so smart, these locations are just terrible.
Yep. You still there, Darcy? You're
Yeah, I
oh,
was just
okay.
saying, being that she's so smart, the locations that she's put him are just questionable. You're right. There's got to be more to the story.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are you saying in the chat? Leanne said she didn't want her family to be around when she disposed of him. That's why she waited until the East Coast, Gulf Coast. I mean, she had family in the Carolinas, and I don't know. I'm not discounting what you said. I'm just trying to digest it. Glam Dolly, is it feasible nobody saw Leticia dumping Gannon's body at its final location off a public highway in Florida? I don't know. Is it, Danielle? I can't remember. Is
the water levels were not high.
Right, but what I was going to ask you, and because I really can't remember, this Santa Rosa County has a crime line reward for that, right?
They have a what?
Didn't Santa Rosa County put out a reward for information?
They did.
Yeah.
They did. It was, I forget how much the reward was for, but it was for anybody that had information about Leticia Stauch in the area of Pace, Florida from February 3rd to February 5th.
Right. I tried to find that information
realistically,
online the other day.
Yeah, that Gannon had been there since February 3rd, 4th, or 5th up until March 17th when he was found.
Yeah.
That's what I take from it.
Right.
Just to clarify, I've seen this commented a couple. Leticia's brother does not live in Florida. That is not the same person. There is somebody with the same name as Leticia's half brother. That is not her brother.
And you always have
her brother lives in North Carolina.
You guys have to remember in this case, and because of her heritage, for lack of a better word, there's a lot of the same names that come up over and over and over again, and so you have to be really careful. And that rumor was out there for a while, but we've said quite a few times that is not her brother.
The same surnames, the same last names come up. It's like the same 4 last names come up, actually. So
Oxidine, Locklear, Hardin, Hunt. Yeah.
Lowry.
Yes.
Yeah. So
let's see. Oh, okay. So Leanne says her family wasn't with her because she drove home first and then dumped solo a couple of days later, in her opinion. So you think she went all the way to the Carolinas and then doubled back to the Panhandle? Yeah, Amanda, there isn't a Gordo on the witness list, but no last name or address. They do that sometimes when people mention, when that's part of their story. I hate referencing the Casey Anthony case over and over again because I'm not aligning them two together. But I do remember there were people on that witness list, like, what were some of the made up names? Julia, the movie star. I can't think. There were just like these made up names, and those people were on the witness list. And then, they have to say, like, we couldn't find anybody with these names. Meaning they probably don't exist.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So they just don't want to leave anything open or, not wrapped up.
Yeah. Jan Thurgood, to my knowledge, I don't know if there was never a reward offered for Gannon.
Right. It's
in the case
for information.
And the reward that.
Go ahead. Sorry.
The reward that was offered after he was found.
Yeah.
And it was information that related to seeing Tisha in the Pace area over February 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Right.
So
Catherine B. Juliette Lewis, that's who it was. Her very good friend. She didn't have a phone number for. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh boy.
So, goodness.
So, Darcy, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, you guys have done such a good job. Thank you for having me on, and I really appreciate it and everything that you've done for this case and everything else you're doing. Thank you.
Aw,
I am
thank you.
gonna I'm gonna go ahead and go to Facebook and drop a link to your page. If you could just give me 1 second, I'll do that.
Yeah, I've shared it a few times. I can drop
Oh,
it
did
again
you?
as well.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll share this on the Herald page too.
Yeah, you've done it. You've done an excellent job, and you know, if you guys can, what date? What do they look at to find the piece where you called Leticia out so they can read it, and we'll go and pull that too. Like about what time? The post that we were referencing earlier. Where can they see that? Darcy, your mic's not on.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
That was. I should have looked on the page before we started talking to see when that was. I do not remember off the top of my head. If you want, I can just send you a link when we hang up because I don't remember the exact date.
That would be awesome because you all should read it. It was really just kind of amazing post and event at the time because we were all sitting here thinking, wow, this person said what we are all wanting to say. She took her platform and she did it. So
thank you. I try to think that I do that every day of my life, and that's what gets me into trouble. So I'm very, very grateful that it worked out well this time.
well, I think we could relate to that in some ways. So.
Yeah, probably. But yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. And
Yes,
like
thank
I
you
said,
for
good
coming
job.
on.
Keep it up.
Yeah, and maybe we'll talk again as, we go to trial and all that good stuff.
Sounds good. If I uncover anything massive, I'll be sure to send it your way.
Thank you so much. All right, good night.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Good night, Darcy. Thank you.
So that was interesting. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, she had a lot of input. I always like to hear from people who are
Me
local.
too.
Because I feel like they have a better insight sometimes than we do.
Absolutely. And
especially because, I mean, Darcy having her platform and having Leticia message her and all that stuff,
right.
So
yeah, that's interesting. And then, kind of, well, Leticia tried to call her bluff and Darcy called it back. So
yeah, definitely. It's interesting to
hear
that, anytime anybody said anything about Leticia, she reached out to them and tried to cover her tracks a little more and a little more. It's interesting.
She likes to run the show. They just didn't.
She does.
Didn't know how.
She does.
Yeah. Testing how far her reach would go, I suppose. So.
Right.
Alrighty then. Is that a wrap, girly girl?
I think that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll be back.
Thank you to our moderators, always. Amanda, Texas Gal, and True Helper. And everybody that joined us this
Both of them are down there doing an amazing job.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what else should we say? I'll do it. We never do this. Give this video a like if you liked it. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. And they've been dropping links for our Facebook groups. If you're not in the Gannon group, there's a lot that goes on there that happens right away and a lot of talk 24/7, and it keeps you in the loop. And we'd love to see you there.
Yes, definitely.
Oh,
until next time, guys, we will talk to you later.
Okay, good night, Danielle.
Good night, Amy. Bye, guys.
Bye.